The last place I wanted to be was Frostnipistan.
This one's wife. Archie birth does not make sense. Hello, I'm HG Tudor. You might think to yourself, aha, HG, you're being a typical narcissist here, bringing something up from the past that's over 5 years ago. Well, I am bringing something up from the past, you're absolutely right. And I'm doing so because the fact that it's been reported on some 5.5 years later raises something interesting about what I would see as a potential shift in attitude with regard to the question of the births. Rebecca Absalom has written in the Daily Mail. Now, as you know, the Daily Mail generally likes to lambast the Sussexes for 2 reasons. One, much of their readership doesn't like the Sussexes, therefore they're playing to the gallery. And also, of course, the Daily Mail is owned by Associated Newspapers, which has had litigious history with Harry and this one's wife. There will be occasions, however, where they will speak in a praiseworthy manner of this one's wife and Harry, which of course causes certain readers to get rather upset. And it's done deliberately, of course, by the journalists at the Daily Mail because it agitates, and they know that by singing the praises of this one's wife, that's going to get up to the nose of certain of their readership, which results in more comments and engagement, which assists with regard to advertising. However, notwithstanding the fact that they generally are as against the Sussexes, they haven't really gone down the route of questioning the provenance of the births of Archie and Lilibet and subsequent photographic evidence that has transpired thereafter in the way that other outlets, mainly across social media, have done so. This has led to a degree of frustration from many individuals who remain convinced that there is something untoward about the whole children scenario involving the Sussexes that merits further investigation, and has resulted in people being perplexed as to why mainstream media won't touch these aspects. I've explained previously that it may well be the case that they don't because there isn't actually anything to investigate. They've done so, and the rumours are simply that, rumours, and there is no substance to report on. It could be that they're concerned about being on the receiving end of defamation actions. It could also be that, as opined, there is the existence of a super injunction, which means that these matters are not spoken about. But interestingly, this article that has appeared just recently, only yesterday, in the Daily Mail, serves an interesting purpose with regard to shedding light on the whole circumstances surrounding the birth of Archie. And that's why I have focused on something which ordinarily you might think, why are they talking about something that happened years ago? Are they just short of things to comment on at the moment because the Sussexes aren't doing much? Well, listen to this and see if you can find out what they're driving at. There was considerable confusion at the time of the birth of Prince Harry and this one's wife's son, Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor. And just how the couple managed to successfully keep his arrival private is revealed by Harry in his memoir, Spare, which was released in paperback last month. Since this one's wife was a week past her due date in May 2019, the couple secretly visited the Portland hospital to make sure nothing's wrong, though they were well prepared for Archie's arrival. We got into a nondescript people carrier and crept away from Frogmore without alerting any of the journalists stationed at the gates, Harry writes. Within 2 hours of the birth, the couple had returned to Frogmore Cottage without arousing any suspicion. The doctor decided it was time to induce labour, and This one's wife was given a canister of laughing gas to help ease the process. Meanwhile, Harry, who had ordered Nando's via his bodyguards, took a hit from the gas meant for his wife. I took several slow, penetrating hits. Meg, bouncing on a giant purple ball, a proven way of giving nature a push, laughed and rolled her eyes. I took several more hits, and now I was bouncing too, Harry reveals. Now, I've analysed what that behaviour amounts to when I was dissecting the Boarfest that was Spare at the beginning of last year. When her contractions began to quicken and deepen, a nurse came and tried to give some laughing gas to Meg. There was none left. The nurse looked at the tank, looked at me, and I could see the thought slowly dawning. Gracious, the husbands had it all. Fortunately, the nurse saw the humour in the situation and replaced the canister for this one's wife. The Duchess settled into the bath, immersing herself in the calming sounds of Diva Primal Sanskrit mantras, which had been remixed into hymns. Harry set the ambience by arranging electric candles, the same ones he had used during his proposal to this one's wife, around the room. Among the items in her overnight bag was a framed photograph of Harry's late mother, Princess Diana, Diana, Princess of Wales. He noted in his memoir that his touching tribute was this one's wife's idea. Despite this one's wife's efforts to breathe through the discomfort, the intensity became overwhelming, and she ultimately had to receive 2 epidurals. The anaesthetist hurried in. Off went the music, on went the lights, Harry writes. There was a brief moment of concern when the umbilical cord was discovered to be wrapped around the baby, but soon after, their healthy son was born. Harry reflects on this experience in his book, offering an intimate glimpse into their journey through childbirth. A nurse swept the baby into a towel and placed him on Meg's chest, and we both cried to see him, meet him, he says. Our doctor had advised us that in the first minute of life, a baby absorbs everything said to them. So whisper to the baby. Tell the baby your wish for him, your love. Tell. We told. Within 2 hours of this one's wife giving birth, she and Harry had returned to Frogmore Cottage. It was only at this point that an announcement was made about this one's wife going into labour, leading to a disagreement between the prince and his head of communications, Sarah Latham. I had a tiff with Sarah about that. You know she's not in labour anymore, I said. She explained that the press must be given the dramatic, suspenseful story they demanded. But it's not true, I said. The couple's swift return home and the timing of the announcement sparked significant media attention and speculation surrounding the birth of Archie. A few hours later, Harry spoke to journalists outside the stables at Windsor to reveal his son's name. The papers were incensed. They said we'd pulled a fast one on them, he writes. Indeed, we had. That is what is reported in the Daily Mail. And you might think to yourself, okay, why? Why are you telling us about something that happened 5.5 years ago? Why are you referencing something that was written about nearly 2 years ago? What's the point of all of this? The fact is, it seems to me, that what the Daily Mail is telegraphing here is they don't believe the story. Why else would you return to it? I don't think that they believe that this is a credible recollection of what actually went on. They're not going to come out and say, we don't think there was any birth at all, or they used a doll, or there was a surrogate. Perhaps they can't, for legal reasons. But otherwise, why would you write about this? The fact is, given this one's wife's age, and the fact that she'd apparently had 2 epidurals, there is no way that she would have been walking out of there 2 hours after giving birth. Not only would the medical staff not allow her to do so, but I'd very much doubt she'd actually be capable of walking out of there so soon after 2 epidurals. Now, I'm no expert with regard to the issue of childbirth, but members of my family have had children, friends have had children, once heard the stories about labour and birth and all the shenanigans that goes with it. And it seems to me that based on that information as reported here by Harry in his book and then revisited by the Daily Mail, the circumstances don't add up or make sense, along with, as I mentioned before, his behaviour in taking apparently laughing gas and all of that. But this seems to me that the Daily Mail is cocking a snook at the Sussexes to say this is a crock of nonsense. Now, interestingly, in the body of the news article, they have pretty prominently, how does this change your view of Harry and this one's wife? Comment now. Why would this change anybody's view of them when you're reporting on something so historic? In other words, they suspect the readership are able to read between the lines, or rather, they recognise that there are plenty of the people who cast doubt on the veracity of this account vis-à-vis the birth. So let's find out if that is the case. Let's find out if the readership of the Daily Mail, and there are 1,400 comments on this article, to see what they have to write in response to this. BB718 states, for a geriatric first-time mother, that would be impossible. No hospital on the planet would confirm that was true, not only because she would have been in labour for at least 24 hours, if not more, and no hospital, private or not, would allow a geriatric mother in her 40s having her first baby to walk out of a hospital 2 hours after giving birth. It did not happen. Now, of course, that individual believes that this one's wife is older than has been stated to suggest that she had Archie in her 40s. She'd be suggesting that she was around about 42, whereas it's stated that she will have been around 38. Missing Aussie adds, and after having 2 epidurals, according to Has Been. The Phoenix writes, unless there is some missing information in this report, it is not possible to have a water birth after receiving an epidural. The epidural site needs to be kept sterile. Also, it's not possible to have an epidural, give birth, and be home in 2 hours. This one's wife had 2 epidurals. Happy P adds sarcastically, what Harry was trying to say was that his wife had a Lazarus moment where she got up and walked when no other woman after 2 epidurals could. Yep, you are right. You are hooked up to a machine. I was the same age when I gave birth, had 2 epidurals. Not only that, you have to stay hooked up to the machines to check your blood pressure until you have a full feeling back and it has returned to normal and is stable. Maria 030660, they claimed they had food while in hospital, which is absolutely impossible, as doctors always keep in mind there could be a C-section. And 2 hours after birth? I don't think so. As her father said, she had a hysterectomy. It probably was a surrogate who gave birth. Archie's birth certificate is clouded in mystery. Lady Brooke. It's become quite apparent that this could all be a lie. It would be better to tell the truth about it now. And, if so, are the children really in succession to the throne? I doubt it. Red Margot. First baby, 2 epidurals, home 2 hours after giving birth. Totally believable, said no one ever. Mine CA Chair. What a superwoman this one's wife is. The only woman in Britain allowed an epidural or 2 immediately before giving birth. As a mother of 5 and with the midwife's sister to confirm, epidurals can only be given at a very specific stage of labour. For most women in the United Kingdom, it's inevitably too late, or was the case in 3 of my deliveries. The sole anaesthetist on duty in the hospital that night was involved in a 12-hour operation elsewhere. Having given birth to the sound of Sanskrit hymns and under the watchful eye of her deceased mother-in-law, this one's wife became the only woman ever to walk immediately after 2 epidurals. There are mobile epidurals where this is possible, but patients can't receive 2 in a row. This one's wife must have received the normal variety. With no numbness in her legs and deemed too special to remain hooked up to various monitoring machines, the happy family immediately set off for the hour-long journey home. Sitting upright on an uncomfortable seat in a people carrier immediately after giving birth was no problem for the fearless new mother. Betty1923, so Harry's totally fabricated birthing story leads us to conclude the rest of the book is fiction too. Georgie123, no one leaves hospital so soon after an epidural. I had one, and I had to stay overnight, catheter and all. I hardly think the Portland would let their royal charge leave so dangerously soon after having given birth. Deb1354, let's ask the midwife. I'm sure recollections may vary. Jenny Wren 2, I do not believe a word of that story. 2 epidurals and home within 2 hours. Not possible. On and on it goes, where people completely doubt that this recollection of the birth is accurate in the slightest. From doubting that she gave birth at all through to stating that she might have given birth, but the fact is it isn't as described. It seems to me very clearly, and the reaction of hundreds of readers, that their Daily Mail doesn't believe this birthing story at all. And of course, we know that this one's wife is a narcissist, which means that she has a propensity to fabrication for the purposes of the pursuit of the prime aims, that she is a deluded individual, and that, given her absence of emotional empathy, her sense of entitlement, and her lack of accountability, it is entirely conceivable that she would engage in such a fiction with regard to achieving the prime aims. The fact that a mainstream newspaper publishes this now, in the manner that it does, tells me very clearly that they don't believe the birth story. They can't state as such, but the fact is that the article is headlined, How This One's Wife Went to Hospital, Delivered Archie and Returned to Frogmore Cottage within 2 hours without causing any suspicion. In other words, this is suspicious. And it's clearly signalling to those reading between the lines, they don't accept that what this one's wife and Harry have said is true in the slightest. What's your view about it all? And also your view of the Daily Mail doing this? Let me know in the comments section. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for listening.